Have you ever done something so stupid that it turned around and bit you really hard on the ass? That is what happened to me the day I stole a laptop at a coffee shop. I was broke. I mean, really broke. I had lost my job about 8 months before, and I barely even had 3 months of savings when I lost it. This was back in 2020 when everything was shut down. So finding a job was hard, and since my job was a contract phone job from home, they wouldn't give me any unemployment. I was out on my own. I don't know why the company I worked at shut down, but I think the owner got COVID, and suddenly we were all let go. I applied for many different jobs, but it seemed that all of the telecommute jobs were taken, and the grocery stores in the area weren't hiring. All of the other stores and businesses were pretty much shut down. During my many walks at that time, 8 months into the COVID pandemic, I took a long walk to figure out my finances. I lived in a mobile home at the time, so I owned the house but not the land. I had to pay for the land I lived on. I could sell the mobile home, but then I wouldn't have a place to live. If I couldn't pay my lot fee, though, I'd be forced to sell anyway. I was so confused. At that point, I was really hungry, and everything was closed, except for this coffee shop. I heard the owner was a little rebellious and didn't shut down. I had just $10 more of cash from my emergency stash, and I was dying for a latte. As I sat there for 3 hours, sipping down my cold latte and nibbling at my muffin, I watched only 2 others enter the building and leave. One of them just grabbed a coffee and left. Another one worked on a computer for a little bit, then got busy on a phone call at the payphone of all things. He ran out the door so fast and zoomed off in his European sports car so fast, he must have forgotten his laptop, because there it sat on the table. I waited for him to come back, or for the owner to at least clean up the table and take the laptop away to await its owner. But the owner was oblivious to anything else but the news of the pandemic. I went to use the restroom and, in a bit of a panic, I picked up the laptop on the way back to my table and shoved it inside my backpack. I mean, who was going to notice? The guy obviously didn't care about it, and neither did the shop owner. I ordered another muffin to go. It took the guy at the counter a moment to realize I was even waiting for him even after hitting the bell. He grumbled, "Have a nice day," as he shoved it into the bag and went back to his TV show. I ran all the way home. If anything, I could wipe out the hard drive on the machine and sell it for a few hundred on eBay so I could wait 1 more month before losing my house. If the man didn't care about it that much, then it didn't matter, right? I sat down and opened the machine. It had a full battery, but the man didn't leave a charger. I figured I had a few hours of time left where I could wipe out the operating system and all of the data, then sell it without an OS. It was just a standard PC, so anything system would work on it. If I sold it bare bones on the dark web instead of eBay, then no one would ever report it, right? When I opened the device, I had to select my Wi-Fi instead of it automatically finding it, which I found kind of odd. Usually, any device seeks out hotspot signals. I logged into my hotspot instead of my Wi-Fi to keep my network safe. Supposedly, there was a firewall in between them with a dynamic IP address on the hotspot which would be harder to trace. Honestly, I found it weird the machine didn't have a login password. All of my devices have passwords. I poked around to find any personal information I could find, so I could hide the sale from the person, company, or location the person might be from. I admit, I've done some shady things online, and I know how to isolate certain locations to hide what I'm doing. I looked everywhere, including the pictures and the internet browsers, and I couldn't find 1 drop of personal information. It was almost like this machine came right out of the box. There was nothing but the default operating system, a couple of browsers, and the standard apps. I did notice that Tor was installed. You know Tor, the onion router? It's the de facto browser for the dark web. Honestly, I have never found anything interesting on the dark web. Most of the sites were either fake or selling drugs or weapons. I didn't find much of anything, and I'm not into the kiddie stuff, so I didn't look for that grossness either. I didn't see any red rooms or torture chambers or any of the weird stuff you hear on Reddit Let's Not Meet or the creepypasta stories. I figured it was all fake and never looked again. I found some of his bookmarks and thought, cautiously, that maybe he had found some sites with the darkness I've heard on these other sites. The bookmarks were labeled Site 1, Site 2, Site 3, and then on. Of course, on the dark web, you don't see actually domain names, so this was a guessing game at best. The first 3 sites gave me page not found errors. The 4th page, however, was a bit disturbing. It stated $3 million at the top of the page and included a picture of man I didn't know. Beneath it were pictures of the same man, but he was dead with a bullet to the head. Figuring it was just a joke, I continued on to the next page. This one was labeled $750,000. It showed the face of a man, a CEO of a company, who had died several weeks ago. They said he died in a car crash, and guess what? The pictures beneath were close-up pictures of his face dead in the car. I was starting to get nervous. Could I have found the laptop of a journalist or perhaps even a serial killer? Or even worse, a contract killer. I thought about not looking at the next one, but I just couldn't help myself. When I opened it, I was shocked to see the dollar amount at the top was $15 million, and the target was the current sitting president. There were no pictures underneath. I did notice, however, the little red dot next to the camera. Someone was recording me. "Oh, shit!" I said a little too loud and slammed the cover down on the laptop. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I picked up the machine. With my heart pounding in my chest and legs feeling weaker than if I rode a horse for a week without stopping, I shoved the laptop in the trash and took it out to the garbage can. I shoved it way down and set the garbage out on the curb for the weekly pickup the next morning. That night, I turned off all of the lights in the house and just watched my cable TV. I turned off my phone and computer. I didn't want anything to do with this. It could have been fake, and that would have been nice. But did I really want to take that chance? I should have just turned it in, but I could barely breathe. The anxiety got the best of me as my arms and legs shook like a scared little kid. Hopefully, it was just some stupid game people were playing, some cosplay thing. I propped the top of the kitchen chair under the doorknob and a bottle on top of the knob. Something I learned from one of the conspiracy theory movies I love so much. If someone tried to open the door, the bottle would fall, but the chair would remain. I watched that door until finally falling asleep around 4 in the morning. When I awoke, I realized it was already noon. The bottle was still on the chair and the door was still locked. I looked outside the window and found no one else on the street had put their garbage out. "Damn, it's a holiday," I said a little too loud, realizing the garbage always comes a day late when there's a holiday. After carefully removing the chair and bottle, I ran outside and grabbed the laptop from the bin. I remembered I hadn't actually shut it down. I didn't want it sitting out all day, waiting with some signal going off, so I grabbed it out of the stinky, smelling garbage that had been sitting in the 90-degree heat wave temps all morning long. The machine was clean of debris, fortunately, so I opened it up, getting ready to shut it down, and removed the battery when the page I was last on refreshed. It was no longer an image of the sitting president. It was an image of me staring down, reading something. It was a picture from last night when I last had the laptop open. I was reading it. The camera was on. With my heart racing and my lungs wheezing, I quickly smashed the machine with a cast iron frying pan and dropped it into a sink of running water. I didn't want them to trace it to my location. I didn't think. I wasn't thinking. I should have boxed it up and sent it to the feds or dropped it off at the police station. But what if they were the enemy? I'm going to go into hiding now. I'm afraid. Very afraid.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, head on over to my website at www.scarystorytime.com and make a comment or share with your friends. I'd love it if you read my books. Visit my author page on Amazon at www.scarystorytime.com/Amazon. That's all for tonight. I'll see you in your nightmares.